And so welcome everyone. This is our fifth. I know we accidentally had a little hiccup there. This is our fourth live group coaching call. Um, and Rhonda just was sharing her fears and concerns, as we all have, about the ever-changing dynamic of the COVID-19 pandemic. And here in Oregon, we are experiencing our worst wave yet. And it is bringing back all of these feelings of anxiety and uncertainty. And, for for me, it activates fear. And so I wanted to take this moment and this experience of collective shared fear, um, and kind of start layering in this experience of how we feel in our bodies. Because the first thing, Rhonda, if you don't mind me, the first thing that you said when you got on, and I don't know, you may not have said this, but this is what I heard is, well, my whole world's going to shit. So um, I kind of giggle at that. Again, that's what I heard, I swear, in my mind. And this experience of weight regain or falling off track after bariatric surgery, the experience that Erin shared with her horse and her horse being sick. And, again, this is what happens when our outside world feels a little bit hectic and out of our control. The internal experience is something that we have in many different scenarios, whether it's COVID, whether it's a sick loved one, whether it's an argument with a spouse, whether, you can name all these different scenarios, but the feeling inside our body is the same. I see Erin kind of nodding a little bit. So let's just take a minute here, and you can turn off your camera if you like, but let's just try to do a little bit of grounding, and let's see if we can't connect to this feeling of anxiety in our bodies, because I definitely have it. And let's see if we can't maintain or find this connection to our sense of self, to where we can allow this anxiety to exist, either coexist with us or simply be. Our nervous system has the ability, the capacity to feel alert and awake and enlivened, while at the same time also holding place for rest, digestion, connection, and bonding. The body's pretty amazing. We can do both. But because we have a thinking brain and we have an emotional heart and emotional body, and we have all these physical sensations, sometimes we can uh, lose sight of that sense of groundedness, lose sight of, or lose feeling, right? Lose awareness. I think awareness is probably the most applicable word here, is awareness. So you don't have to close your eyes to practice awareness. In fact, some neurosensory teachers actually think it does the body more good to do this type of work with your eyes open, because as a human, you're constantly relying on your senses to help your brain convey messages of safety and security to your physical body. So if your surrounding environment is a soothing one or a calming one, great. Use your eyes to help you find that sense of groundedness and that sense of stability. So as we're sitting calmly, looking around the room, you want to also think about or hold awareness to, again, we're trying to really feel here. We're trying to feel and think and sense at the same time. So you want to hold awareness to the physical sensation of your feet. And it's so easy to just not even think about those feet, or to think about the task you have to do following this meeting. or to not feel our bodies at all, because sometimes when we get a little anxious or activated, the last thing we do is hold awareness to how we actually feel. So let's hold awareness to how our feet feel. Maybe we have a covering over our feet. Maybe we have a texture we can feel. Maybe there is a temperature we can feel. So as we're holding this awareness to our feet, and we are simultaneously looking straight out in front of us, and maybe you're looking within your room, maybe you're looking out a window, but just note in your mind's eye what it is that you're looking at. You can think that object out loud. You can be as specific as giving it a name. You can be as specific as labeling or describing to yourself the colors, the qualities, wood, metal, plastic, leafy, and at the same time, hold awareness to how your feet are feeling. Warm, cold, soft, hard surface, cool surface, flat. And then there's a third layer here, and this third layer is what among every single mindfulness-based practice, among every culture around the world, knows as a universal truth, and that is our breath. And so when we are experiencing anxiety and worry, frustration, fear, there is a natural tendency for the body to want to try to flee or freeze. And this act of fleeing or freezing is this equally important protective mechanism for our bodies, but also can distract us from our breath. So as we are in this moment, holding attention to this item that we can see in front of our physical space, this item that connects us to the here and now, we're also paying attention to the physical sensations around our feet, which is grounding us to the earth and also holding us in this place and time. And then we're going to notice how you breathe. Often just mentioning the word breath changes the way in which you breathe. Sometimes we can start to force it. Sometimes we can notice the body wanting to slow down. Sometimes we can take a deeper breath more easily. And simultaneously holding this awareness to the feet and these inanimate objects in your eye and in your space and your breath. There's an art to paying attention without trying to force or change. And just kind of accepting the moment and being really present with each other in this environment. There's another layer here to the human experience, which is calling on resources for soothing. And many times in this field of work, in this internal struggle and dilemma with body weight, there can become a emotional connection. We call it emotional, but it's this whole nervous system response. But there can be a connection to disengaging from the body, disengaging from the mind, and then identifying food as a resource for self-soothing. It happens quite often. Sweetness in this moment can be associated with so many powerful memories that you don't even necessarily have to be specific to one thing, but are associated with many positive experiences. And what's coming to mind for me right now is sweetness and that connection to maternal bonding. So, and as an example, when we are little babies, we do not have a nervous system capacity to understand the world around us. We don't have physical abilities to feed ourselves, change ourselves, keep ourselves warm. And so there's a great reliance on a infant's bond to the feeding caregiver. And in this example, let's just imagine a mother, a breastfeeding mother. And so every time this infant cries for the first several weeks of their life, the natural maternal instinct is to go to that baby, put a nice warm breast in that baby's mouth, and feed that baby's tummy so full of sweet, sweet milk. Breast milk is incredibly sweet. It's kind of more like ice cream than it is like cow's milk. And those infants, us even in our early lives, were fed so much milk to the point of being so full that sometimes we would even have to be burped and spit up. We had just consumed so much milk. We would be drunk in calmness and sweetness by that elixir. So these topics and these notions of, resources and what is it that we reach for in settings that are upsetting or stressful to us, I think is a very pertinent topic to the success of every individual going through life, trying to really heal their body and their relationship to weight and food, because weight and food are, according to our culture, they go hand in hand. So I mention all of these things to really guide us towards the state of feeling a little bit more calmed and relaxed. I definitely felt very calmed and relaxed very, very shortly into it, which is why I segued into this topic. But now I want to really open up the floor. And I know we only got 2 of you here today, and we got Bonnie. Bonnie has so much wonderful experience, having these conversations with bariatric clients over time. We can use this moment, this uncertainty moment, we can use this moment together to help tap into some of these other skills that we have. And again, it's our intention working with us in this program that we're practicing these skills, where we're practicing these resources, we're letting life happen. Life is going to continue to happen. And we're going to use this group as a way to sort of foster the next level of support. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. And we can just share and talk, and let me know how you guys are feeling.
I think for me, normally I don't say anything when things bother me. Like I might chat with my husband, I might chat with my mom, just kind of chat, hey, I'm upset or whatever. But this go around for me this week has been really stressful at work. being told that I may have to go to the floor. I think for me, a huge thing that happened this week was I kind of embraced that it pissed me off. And I didn't just shove my feelings down or go eat some comfort chips. I allowed myself to be pissed off and expressed that to a couple people who had mentioned something to me, that my feeling of being pissed off is valid. And that was really helpful for me. I know that seems kind of silly, but in the past, I've just never allowed myself to be angry or to show emotion outside of my comfort people of my mom and my husband.
I think that there is a lot of symbolism kind of going on for me. This notion of kind of tucking things away, tucking emotions away, kind of hiding them from others. You're kind of burying them in your body. There's an aspect to metabolism that I think goes beyond food, and this kind of protective mechanism of burying things down and hiding emotions and not letting them come forth. It's very akin to digestion. It's like you got constipated in anger, you got constipated in emotion, and when we do that, we get really sluggish. Our metabolisms really slow down. So Rhonda, I just want to say thank you for sharing, thank you for tapping into that inner need to express yourself. And I'm really glad that you had a nice safe place to do it, because that's another thing that's left over from these early childhood experiences. Sometimes when we're really little and we're kind of tantruming, and I'm a parent right now, so this is a battle for me. But when your kid is tantruming, as a parent, sometimes you just want to tell them to stop, that they can't be doing that because it's making everybody else uncomfortable, right? So there's this act of like coaching through social norms and social circumstances. But sometimes it can get so buried that we kind of grow up thinking we can't express ourselves and we can't be angry and we can't be sad, and I need to protect myself. I need to be, kind of a steel wall for who I even share that with. So, Rhonda, I don't know if we had any positive impact or ability in helping you feel that and emote that right now, but congratulations. I'm sure that feels really good.
I think for me, it was being aware of other avenues. We've talked a lot about, why do you feel like an M&M? Why do you feel like chips? Why do you feel, and stopping and thinking, okay, why do I feel like those things? Why right now do you need to get up and go get something junky and crappy? So it has helped.
Awesome. Yeah, Bonnie, I'll credit you with naming that emotion.
So I had a crazy couple days. I've been doing so well, and I'm so excited that I've been actually able to affect change. And I'm recently divorced, only 8 weeks divorced, 3 months with him out of the house. And all of a sudden, I had this fear bubble up, like, oh my God, how am I going to be a single mom, support my family, work in my business, do all the things I have to do? And I just got so afraid. And I'm like, I have to jump back into the dating world. And I'm like, oh God, I don't want to jump back into the dating world. And I just was really afraid of my future. And on Thursday, I found myself just being frustrated and stressed, just afraid. And I found myself snacking. And when you were talking about like the sweet with childhood, I realized that I go for the violent food. So like for me, it was like I was eating raw cashews and just like the crunch and like the violent, and I had popcorn. And there's something about popcorn that like it's monotonous. It's like hand in the bowl to the mouth, crunch, 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 hand in the bowl to the mouth. And I'm finding that I'm using like violent food, like that's very, I don't know, not sweet or it just crunchy and angry. And I guess I'm dealing with my fear and stress that way, but I caught myself like, and I thought about what you guys said, like, you can't be a perfect eater all the time. And I caught myself and I got right back on track. The next day I drank all my water. I ate what I consider to be like on program food. And seeing a weight loss in the last couple weeks has been really amazing because I've been struggling for years, like since the birth of my youngest daughter, who will be 10 next week, of trying to get weight down. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is so silly, but it's almost like Dorothy with the ruby slippers, like she had it with her all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I still have this like pouch and this tool with me all the time. I just have to like use it. And I've been amazed over the last couple weeks that when I actually eat the right way I'm supposed to, that the weight is coming off like without even having to really think about it and not feeling deprived. And then like I had one screw up day and I'm like, okay, it's over, it's done, and I'm back on track. So it's just facing my fear and not letting my fear paralyze me or direct how I'm going to eat and treat myself has been a big deal for me.
So beautiful. That's so great. Yeah, so fear has came up. Actually, it was kind of like a shared thing today, I think. Fear, and how can fear then move through you? Fear can bring you to anger, right? And fear can bring you to frustration. I found what you just said very interesting about, did you say violent food?
Yeah, like the stuff that's really like, I don't know, when like you're crunching popcorn, and I have TMJ too, so it's even more violent. It's just like crunching and like just the chewing, and I don't know, it's not like a sweet soothing thing, it's more like of a violent tear through it thing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So there, and I don't know how much of the modules you guys have listened to, but in the microbiome modules, what I was kind of alluding to is there has, and it's been mapped out, very, very well mapped out, but these gut bacteria that inhabit our bodies are actually responsible for making our vitamins. They're responsible for making our neurotransmitters. They're responsible for making a lot of soothing chemicals. And it's neat because, when I was in medical school, we were taught that this is what the body does. But between even just the last 15 years, it's been coming out that there's this whole underground world that we as humans have actually evolved from. And it's these micro communities of them living inside us that's actually running the show. Now that gets a little abstract because we think, well, we think, therefore we are, we have bodies, we have parents, we have genetics. It's really this interconnection between us as human organisms as being separate, but we can't really fully be separate because we have to embrace that along the way, every single step, including birth, including before birth, including generations. The genetic material from these bacteria has been making human life work. And again, biology is pretty nuts, but you look down inside a cell, and inside a cell is ancient bacteria structure that are actually responsible for making all of the energy in a body. And what is metabolism? It is your body's ability to shift energy from one state to the next, which is why you can get even more esoteric and talk about all of these different ways that we move emotions through our body, that we move physical sensations through our body. Yes, I am a surgeon and medical doctor, but I went to an osteopathic medical school, which really entertains the rest of the world's appreciation for mind-body medicine. And our nervous system and our brain and all of our organs of digestion at the cellular level, all the body really needs is to know it is safe, to know it is loved, and to be fed real food that the bacteria know what to do with. When we eat foods that are heavily processed, which is just part of the pathology of our culture today, pathology of diet culture, low calorie stuff that has tons of chemicals in it, artificial sweeteners, you name it, too much sodium, high fructose corn syrup, layered on top of that is how that food is grown. And then you got pesticides. In fact, just over this last week, I got a press release, sort of Google alert that a new version or a new pesticide was already removed off the market for being a carcinogen. Can't remember the name of it. Glyphosate was the big one. This is the second hard hitter. So our bodies are constantly trying to create energy. It doesn't have to all be positive. It can absolutely be negative. We can hold space for anger. We can hold space for needing to crunch. But hopefully through this program, and again, Erin, I think you're a really good testament to this. What'd you say? It's sorcery. You're like, what's happening? The body really does find its natural rhythm when we support it to do so. And this is sort of a lost art because we have so much technology, we're rushing, poor Rhonda's working and, you're at home working. We don't really have this culture of creating space and creating time, room to breathe, room to feel, and then our access to good natural made foods is also dwindling. So anyway, I feel like I'm on the soapbox right now. This is really important, right? It's really important as we go into, another serious COVID wave all across the world, that we really learn how to take care of our bodies. Because it goes so much more than just body weight, but, our ability to gain weight easily, our ability to have stress and inflammation easily is a symptom of these bacteria not thriving. So that connection between the gut bacteria actually making their neurotransmitters, when we have enough fiber and enough many different plant foods in our diet, we make our own antidepressants internally. And there has been evidence, I don't want to say it's crystal clear, but there has been evidence to suggest that in lab rats who are genetically similar, they've been cloned, they've lived in a cage their whole life, they don't have access to natural dirt or the normal rodent diet. So they have gut bacteria that is very similar across all species without much outside influence. These rats are very scared, very anxious, and easily stressed. And in this environment, they stress them even more. Something as simple as changing the rat's diet to favor more of a natural one, or even adding a single strain probiotic species that we commonly get in our Greek yogurt, had enough of an effect that that rat, compared to the control, the lab rat without any of this beneficial bacteria, in a water swim test, the one that got the probiotic swam harder and longer without giving up in repeated trials. So science is now calling this connection psychobiotic, because what happens in the gut with our gut bacteria is directly impacting our brain and our nervous system's ability to regulate. So you said you're having more awareness to your body and your choices and what's going on. I want to give the microbiome diet a little credit here for helping you guys feel these things, and also that resiliency of peaking to these experiences, but then also coming right back down, resetting, and knowing that you're on path doing the right thing for yourself. So good job. Really, really good job. So I didn't see, Bonnie, did anybody post any questions or anything like that on our Facebook thread?
I didn't see, but let me check again really quick and see if we got any last minute ones.
Because the other thing I wanted to mention is we intentionally didn't create 2 additional weeks of 7-day meal plans for you guys. I figured by this point, you have it pretty well worked out what your favorites are, what your family needs. And now it's time to start practicing the flexibility of not necessarily having a stringent plan. Some people have shared that they had a hard time following a set plan anyway. It's a guide, right? So portion sizes are there, again, volume of plants. The other thing, which nobody has really shared with me, nobody has felt excessively hungry or that they weren't getting their needs met on the meal plan. I just want to say, awesome. That's exactly what we were hoping for. But if for whatever reason, hunger does ebb and flow as well. I want this group or even the Facebook to be a good resource for people to, post questions like that. Hey, what are your favorite kind of go-to snacks? What are the best kind of, popcorn, in my opinion, is actually a pretty healthy one, as long as you do the, skinny pop kind of version. Yeah, nobody's like, we don't like that.
Popcorn is fun because it's always classified as a healthy food, but in the bariatric world, it's also called a slider food. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term. Yeah, it just like slides on through.
Yeah, I don't think the movie butter microwave popcorn probably would be a bariatric friendly food, but I don't know, got the job done.
Definitely. But yeah, so best of luck as we embark on these next 2 weeks. Again, follow your heart. If you feel like life is getting stressful, for the sake of not skipping a meal, that's a great time to insert a protein shake. But otherwise, if you have time, if you have creative space, if you want to, again, make breakfast, lunch, and dinner and pack those little toolboxes. I think, was that Rhonda or Mandy? Somebody put those little toolboxes on there. I thought that was great. The only criticism I had was Ritz crackers. And the only reason I want to even bring up Ritz crackers as a criticism is just because of that processed food vein. So Ritz crackers, anything from Nabisco, honestly, anything from Kellogg.
Those were a picture I stole from someone
I
else. They
know,
weren't
I
mine.
know, honey. I know, hon. I
Yeah.
totally saw that. Yeah.
I just thought that was the cutest idea, and they're under $4 at Walmart. So you could pick up a couple of them and kind of like pre-pack your snacks. So yeah, I had to giggle at what she had him in, and she is also a sleeve person. So it made me giggle at her choices of food too.
Honestly, I thought it was a great idea. And so, yeah, I wanted to bring up 2 things about that picture though, because it's relevant and we all saw it. The Ritz crackers was one. So I'm a big fan of crackers. I think they're fantastic. I like this, like the snack on the go. But when you are making these choices, when you go through the grocery store, read the ingredients, read the labels, really pick the cleanest, and clean is kind of a buzzword, but the bare minimum kind of ingredients. So rice crackers are a pretty good choice. It literally is just rice. Granted, there's no protein in it, but at least it's a whole food kind of source. Milton's is a brand of a kind of whole grain cracker, pretty high in fiber for a cracker, and they have a non-GMO label on their box. GMO, for me, and this is again mostly opinion, but there's a whole spectrum here to discuss. The actual act of modifying an organism's genome, I think we're just at this tipping point of technology where we can't really go backwards. And so we're just going to be seeing it, right? Maybe even this notion of like the COVID vaccine, some very smart physicians and researchers are arguing that it is a genetic modification to us as an organism. I don't know how to dispute it. I don't know how I feel about it. I think we're just in the era of gene modifying. We've been doing it for thousands of years with selective breeding, right? Now we just have a microscope and we can insert a snippet of a gene here and there. So we're kind of selective breeding all the time. But for me, that pure agriculturist, soil science, microbiome lover, for me, GMO products and non-organic products do cross a line. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, not at all, but they kind of cross an ethical line of, again, spraying all your crops with a known toxic carcinogen that is very destructive to the planet and to these microorganisms. So I do tend to look for brands that celebrate being non-GMO or being organic. And the organic label implies that they are not GMO. So that's one thing. The other thing with those tackle boxes, and this is more of a Chinese medicine philosophy and more of a Ayurvedic philosophy, but that is when we eat too many foods that are cold and not enough cooked food, not actually sitting down and preparing a meal, a warm meal. Warm meals just nourish the body and nourish the nervous system differently. They actually shift us into that parasympathetic state. And as humans go through seasonal changes, in Oregon, we can already kind of feel it today. Fall is just like knocking around the corner. There becomes a need for the body to maintain a sense of warmth. And one of the ways we do it is through, warmish beverages like teas and things like that, cooked meals like an omelet for breakfast, maybe a grilled chicken, steamed veggie kind of lunch, and then maybe again, like a cooked dinner. So I just want to gently offer that as a point of awareness. How many times a day are you cooking food and eating a cooked meal? And again, this is more of an energetic thing, more of a nervous system kind of thing, but it has implications to stress response. It has implications to your immune system. And again, what I'm sharing does contradict some of California's raw food movement, right? So again, the nutrition world is full of paradoxes. There's no black and white. There is always a rhythm. There's always a need that I think you should listen to and hold awareness to in your body. But that being said, smoothies every day for breakfast. In the wintertime, if I do a smoothie and then I do a salad, I don't know, I feel a little depleted. And you can feel energetically depleted, you don't get as good a sleep. I mean, there's just, it's just something to pay attention to. It's an internal process, it's an internal rhythm. So those were my two things I wanted to share with that awesome toolbox post, just because it was a point of reflection for myself.
I have a question about the probiotics. When I've been trying to get, when I structure my meals, it's protein, fiber, and a probiotic. So I'll have my sauerkraut on the side, or what I've been doing, which I've really been liking, is blopping some of the yellow miso into steamed vegetables. Does the heat kill the probiotics? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, good question. So definitely high heat, like if you were to boil a bunch of water, it likely would kill them, right? Bacteria are just like us and all animals, they're very adaptive. So bacteria are kind of neat where you can freeze dry them, which is what they do in those capsules. And then just by rehydrating them, they can kind of sleepily come back awake. What science is starting to study is it the living bacteria themselves that infers the major health benefit? Or is it the byproduct of their metabolism? So to explain that further, bacteria are living organisms just like we are. Some of them breathe oxygen or use oxygen, convert oxygen to energy, just like we convert food to energy. Some of them use carbon dioxide. So depending on the environment, different bacterial species have evolved to thrive in oxygen-rich environments, like the stomach, we're always swallowing air, or carbon dioxide or non-oxygen-rich environments like your colon. So the cooking process, heat or cold, does impact the growth of them. But at the same time, a living food, which is why we promote them so much on our meal plan, it's they live in or on the, we call it a substrate in science, but substrate is the food. So the miso example, it's a soybean. And the soybean is like a, a dense, complex carbohydrate, fiber rich food plus protein. So what's kind of cool about miso is you have bacteria that also love protein living on there and eating that protein. So they are in essence alive because they have food and oxygen in the environment to eat it. So as you're eating them or eating the miso, not only are you getting some of the organisms, but you're also getting what they create as a function of eating the soybean. That is called a metabolite. And these are just, again, sciencey words, but it's kind of hard to just say, eat your metabolites. But these metabolites are really the chemical messages of anti-inflammation, the chemical messages of building up serotonin, the chemical messages that make your colon really healthy. And so it's those metabolites internally. So the bacteria that inhabit your body, we actually can't take them out of you and culture them, because your internal environment is so unique that that's the only place in the world that those bacteria can grow. So the reason we even know that these many bacteria exist is because of our technology, our gene sequencing technologies, our ability to scan and read messenger RNA. It's pretty neat and fascinating, and it's just this kind of like almost like a Hubble telescope of like, what's going on under the surface. The other thing I continually stay humble to is we're barely scratching the surface. So at the same time, while it's very mysterious and very exciting, I just get so excited about it because a lot of this microbiome stuff contradicts the medical knowledge we had of 50 years ago. So no, not all antibiotics are good. No, not all bacteria cause disease, and we need to spend time in nature, and we need to eat 3 meals a day, and we need to eat lots of plant and fiber food, and we need to drink clean filtered water. So the basics of sort of this lifestyle practice, which again is shared by every single culture around the world for the last thousands of years, that hasn't changed. What has changed is all of our technology, modern medicine, and processed food. So we just have to kind of dial it in, eat in a way that is more consistent with these traditional practices. In Japan, there is a miso soup, which is a warm broth, not a boiling broth, but you add the miso as it's warm to help it dissolve. I think your sauteed vegetables, warm sauteed vegetables, adding it to that, letting it kind of melt around there with a little, do you use butter or anything as a carrier?
Like a little tiny bit of olive oil.
Yeah, olive oil, perfect, yeah. So I think that oil really helps, and that warm oil helps get that miso kind of spread around. But yeah, so again, does cooking vegetables harm them? Yeah, it can make the vitamin content not as rich, but it also helps you facilitate digestion, because when you have warm food, the bonds are kind of broken down. Again, it's easier to digest. And when we're going through stressful to the body seasonal times, going from really warm to really cold kind of shocks you. Having a warm, easy to digest meal is exactly what your body really thrives from.
Pickling and fermented foods, those are two different things, right?
Kind of. So vinegar is in itself fermented grape juice, usually grape juice, but there's other things you can make vinegar from. But vinegar, like raw apple cider vinegar, that is a fermented product. You're basically getting a kombucha style SCOBY microorganism with that. And most vinegars are, but it depends. So it's like everything that ferments will eventually turn into vinegar. Vinegar is the step of fermentation after alcohol.
So I wanted to make fermented onions because I love onions. I like to throw them on a salad or in a sandwich or something. So if I wanted to make fermented onions, I could just soak them in apple cider vinegar. And then would that be considered a fermented food? Would I get probiotics from that?
You would get probiotics from the apple cider vinegar as long as that was a raw kind of living kind of product. Because not all, I would say, I don't know, it's interesting being a consumer, right? Because when we're buying all this stuff off the shelf, not all the brands do it the traditional way. Bonnie, can you chime in? Bonnie makes some really good pickled vegetables.
I think before fermenting anything, I would just take a look and find some instructions on Google first, because you do have to be careful when you're fermenting, because if they get any layers of mold or things on top, then you can't consume them. You can pickle anything. You can ferment anything.
It is, there is definitely an art to it. And the things I've had the best luck fermenting at home is just a mason jar, filtered water, has to be filtered. My tap water has too much chlorine. It doesn't ferment anything.
Okay.
So it has to be filtered. If you don't have a filter, bottled water, boil it. You know, you really want clean water, no chlorine.
Okay.
Whatever I grow in my garden ferments like that.
Okay.
Because it's coming from my own soil, it hasn't been pressure washed, it hasn't been sprayed with a fungicide at the grocery store, right? Like that's how our food systems, like farmers market would be another place, like good place to do that. There's sweet pickling, which is vinegar, a little bit of sugar, and you kind of just, you make almost a brine, and then you pour that over your vegetables and you just cap it and you let it hang out in the refrigerator for a while. You get the flavor and you get that almost like that kind of the vinegary and kind of the sweetness, which I love that flavor, but that's not fermentation.
Okay.
Fermentation is a little bit of a messier process, and you have to submerge it in water so that the fermentation happens under the surface where there's no oxygen. Because at the surface, if there is oxygen, that dictates which bacterial species grow. And in the flavor profile, the oxygen-rich species is where mold grows, and it's where Acetobacter grows. And it's not that Acetobacter is a bad bacteria, it just doesn't give the best flavor. So my husband's a winemaker, and fermentation's all they do. And I'll try to make my own kraut at home, but I'm always like curious and opening up the lid and checking in on it and totally introducing bacteria and yeast every time. And he's just like, Erica, he's like, I can't. All I taste is Acetobacter, and Acetobacter is a flaw in wine. And so now he's just kind of like, oh, I'm not doing it right. Like, so it is kind of tricky.
Yeah, and you got to make sure that your vegetables you're putting in there, they can't have any soft spots or any, like they're going rotten at all. So like if you did little pickles, you have to be really careful that the pickles haven't gone softish on the outside. So yeah, just make sure your onions are like perfect with no bad spots.
Yeah. I've looked at recipes online too, and they'll add a probiotic capsule to a whey-based thing. And again, that's cheating. That's not, yeah. I don't know. I mean, and I think that they suggested doing that again, because if you're using store-bought produce, if you're using tap water, like you can't really kick off the fermentation process. Fermentation is very simple. It's just, I feel like we're a little far removed from it. It doesn't feel natural to us anymore. So practice. The kvass is what I got into making for my garden. It was just beets, carrots, celery, and dill. It was and fennel, dill and fennel. And it made this fuchsia pink beverage. And at that point, I wasn't even concerned about the vegetables. I just wanted to make the brine. And so I would fill these mason jars all the way to the tip top. No air was in it. And then I would screw on the lid really tight. And then it would just effervesce and bubble. And it was just a little bit of salt water. And that saltwater connection, again, it's just another one of those things that just kind of lights me up inside, because you think about the earth and how the earth evolved from like ocean and just, it's just a little bit of salt water, and bacteria are happy. Our blood, our body is really a kind of a salt watery kind of environment. So I love it though. Keep bringing the fermentation questions, because I don't know. I'll keep trying to find some cool recipes for you. Good. Well, we're kind of nearing the end of our hour. Is there anything else that needs to be said or celebrated?
Yeah, no questions on the Facebook group, so we're good there.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, well, I think with that, we'll wrap it up. Next, one more little announcement. I'll post it to the Facebook group, and then I'll send it out in an email. So you're gonna get kind of a lot of extra from me this week, but we're gonna be asking for feedback. You guys are our first cohort going through this coaching program. We wanna make it really successful for you long-term, curious about what you need kind of beyond this program. And yeah, we just really wanna hear how's it going and if there's anything we can do to make it better. Awesome. All right, you guys, you have a wonderful week.
Bye, everyone.